My friend, the most dangerous prison is not made of iron bars, it's made of lies wrapped in kindness, flattery dressed as friendship, and guilt disguised as loyalty. Manipulators don't force you to surrender, they make you believe it was your idea. They study your heart, not to heal it, but to hijack it. There was once a man, strong, talented, driven. He trusted someone close, someone who praised him often, supported him loudly, and seemed to always have the answers. Slowly, he started deferring his choices to this person, thinking, they just know better. Manipulators exploit your emotions, not your logic. At the heart of manipulation lies one powerful truth: emotions can be controlled far more easily than reason. Manipulators understand this better than anyone else. They do not rely on cold, calculated logic to guide their actions. They thrive on creating emotional chaos, cultivating feelings of guilt, fear, or admiration in order to steer you toward decisions that benefit them, not you. The tactics they employ are subtle, often cloaked in kindness or concern, but the end result is always the same. They take control of your mind by first taking control of your emotions. Think of a time when you felt an overwhelming sense of guilt or fear. These emotions often cloud judgment. When you're feeling guilty, it's hard to think clearly. Your mind races, and you focus on appeasing the person who's made you feel that way rather than thinking rational about what you truly want or need. This is the manipulator's playground. They make you feel something, whether it's guilt, fear, or even love, and then they guide your actions based on that emotional reaction, bypassing the careful, logical thought process that would otherwise protect you. Emotions are powerful, and they often drive us to act in ways that defy logic. Think about how easy it is to fall for someone's flattery or to become defensive when criticized. Manipulators know that when you're overwhelmed with emotions, whether positive or negative, your rational thought is impaired. They exploit this by creating an emotional environment where your decisions are no longer guided by reason, but by the feelings they've intentionally stirred within you. Take flattery as an example. We all enjoy being praised, especially when we feel unseen or undervalued. It feels good when someone notices our efforts and offers genuine compliments. However, manipulators take this basic human need for validation and turn it into a weapon. They will shower you with excessive praise, carefully tailoring their compliments to hit at your insecurities and desires. You may begin to feel a sense of connection or admiration toward them, believing that they truly see you for who you are. But in reality, they are only using your emotional response to get you to trust them more, to make you more susceptible to their influence. The manipulator understands something that many people fail to recognize: emotions are like a door that can be opened to influence behavior. They won't try to convince you to make a logical decision first. Instead, they will try to make you feel a certain way. They will make you feel special, needed, or loved. And once they have established that emotional connection, they will start guiding your actions, one step at a time, until you are doing exactly what they want, often without realizing it. Fear is another emotion that manipulators use to control people. When you're afraid, you are much less likely to make decisions with clarity. Fear narrows your focus, limits your options, and makes you more vulnerable to influence. Manipulators know this well. They will subtly introduce fear into your life: fear of losing something, fear of disappointing others, or fear of being alone, and then they will position themselves as the solution to that fear. They will offer you comfort, protection, or guidance, but only if you follow their lead, trust their judgment, and give up your own independence. The more they can make you afraid, the more you will rely on them for reassurance and decision-making, until eventually, you lose sight of what you truly want and become dependent on them. This manipulation can take many forms, from emotional blackmail to playing on your insecurities. You may have experienced a manipulator subtly trying to make you feel inadequate, making you question your worth or abilities. They do this to create the sense of dependency. If you feel inadequate, you are more likely to seek their approval, to conform to their wishes, or to fall in line with their desires. In their eyes, your insecurity is their power. They know that as long as they can keep you emotionally off balance, they will always hold the upper hand. But it's not just fear or insecurity that manipulators exploit. They also prey on your sense of love and loyalty. Love is another emotion that can be twisted for control. When someone loves you, They may do anything to please you, to avoid causing pain or disappointment. Manipulators understand this deep-seated desire to protect loved ones, and they will use it against you. They will demand that you make sacrifices, put their needs before your own, or act in ways that compromise your values, all in the name of love. What's even more dangerous is that the manipulator's tactics often don't feel manipulative at first. They begin by appealing to your emotions in ways that seem harmless or even caring. They offer support when you're feeling down, and they listen attentively when you express your concerns. Over time, this emotional investment can lead you to believe that you owe them something, that you must repay their kindness with loyalty and obedience. And before you know it, you've been emotionally tied to them in such a way that your decisions are no longer your own. You've become an extension of their desires, responding to their emotional cues rather than your own logic. The manipulator's goal is always to make you feel emotionally responsible for their happiness or well-being. They will use your empathy, your desire to help, and your sense of duty to keep you in their grip. They will create scenarios where you feel obligated to act in their favor, where your emotional response to their situation becomes your driving force. In this way, the manipulator uses your empathy and kindness to ensure you stay in their control. But why do manipulators avoid logic in the first place? Why not just convince you with facts, reason, and sound arguments? The answer lies in the simple truth that logic doesn't stir the same emotional responses. You may be presented with a perfectly logical argument, but it's unlikely to make you feel an intense emotion like fear, guilt, or love. Logic appeals to the mind, but emotion appeals to the heart, and when it comes to influencing human behavior, the heart often outweighs the mind. Manipulators understand this dynamic. They know that if they can provoke a strong emotional reaction in you, whether it's positive or negative, your judgment will be clouded. You will be less likely to think critically, to assess the situation from all angles, or to question their motives. Emotions, in this sense, serve as the perfect distraction. They pull you away from rational thinking and redirect your focus to your feelings, making it easier for the manipulator to guide your decisions. This is why it is so important to protect your emotions. It's not about suppressing your feelings or ignoring them. It's about being aware of when they are being used against you. When someone tries to manipulate your emotions, you must pause and ask yourself, is this decision based on what I truly believe, or is it being shaped by the emotions this person is evoking in me? The Stoic way teaches us to separate our emotions from our judgments, to examine the impulses of our hearts with the clarity of our minds. By becoming aware of how manipulators exploit emotions, you can begin to protect yourself from their influence. Recognize when they are trying to make you feel something in order to sway your behavior. Question whether their words are truly aligned with your best interests or if they are merely appealing to your vulnerabilities. The more you can separate emotional triggers from your decision-making process, the harder it becomes for others to manipulate you. In the end, the greatest defense against manipulation is awareness. Recognize the power of emotions, but don't let them rule your decisions. Understand that manipulators will always try to evoke an emotional response from you to get you to act in ways that benefit them. But you, the master of your own mind, can rise above their tactics. Your emotions are yours to control, not theirs to exploit. When you harness the power of logic and clarity, no manipulator can ever truly deceive you. Boundaries are a form of strength, not selfishness. There is a deep misunderstanding in the world today, especially among kind-hearted individuals, that setting boundaries is a form of cruelty or detachment. Many people equate saying no with rejection, creating distance, or being selfish. But nothing could be further from the truth. Boundaries are not walls to shut people out. They are gates that protect your peace, your energy, and your values. A boundary is not about keeping others away, it's about keeping yourself intact. It is not an act of separation but of self-respect. In this philosophy of Stoicism, maintaining one's inner clarity, self-control, and virtue is central. To do this, one must draw clear lines between what is within their power and what is not. This very principle is the root of what modern minds call boundaries. A Stoic knows that to live in harmony with nature and reason, they must protect the sanctity of their time, their focus, and their values. If you allow others to trample these things, not only do you suffer, but you enable them to live in falsehood and disorder as well. People often feel uncomfortable asserting boundaries because they fear disappointing others. They fear being seen as distant, uncaring, or cold. But what if, instead, we viewed boundaries as the highest form of love, and not just for ourselves, but for others? Because when we set a boundary, we're not only being honest about our needs, we're also giving others the clarity they deserve. We're not pretending, we're not silently building resentment, we're communicating truth. And truth, no matter how firm, is more loving than a light of compliance. There is great strength in knowing when to say yes, and even greater strength in knowing when to say no. A weak person will agree to everything out of fear of conflict. A strong person knows that peace cannot come at the cost of their mental, emotional, or physical well-being. True strength lies in choosing integrity over approval. When you say no to something that drains your spirit or disrespects your time, you are saying yes to your purpose, to your values, and to the people who truly honor you. Imagine a river with no banks. It floods everything in its path, unable to flow with direction or power. But give that river defined as a boundary, and suddenly it becomes a source of life, a path of strength. You are that river. Without boundaries, your energy spills everywhere, absorbed by people who take without giving, or who expect without understanding. But with boundaries, your energy flows with purpose, nourishing only what truly matters. Some may not appreciate your boundaries, especially if they benefited from you having none. Manipulators, especially, thrive when you cannot say no. They rely on your discomfort with confrontation, your desire to be liked, and your fear of judgment. When you start saying no, when you start stepping away, they will react. They may accuse you of being cold or selfish, but remember, their discomfort is not your responsibility. The reaction is proof that the boundary was necessary. There is a sacred responsibility in protecting your own space. Not everyone deserves access to your thoughts, your time, or your trust. Just as you would lock your home to protect your belongings, you must also lock your inner world to protect your peace. A Stoic understands this deeply. We cannot control how others treat us, but we can always control what we accept, what we allow, and what we respond to. And this control of this mastery of self is what makes us truly free. You are not required to explain your boundaries to anyone who disrespects them. You are not obligated to defend your peace to those who disturb it. Sometimes, silence is a stronger boundary than words. Sometimes, walking away is louder than any explanation. There is strength in saying, "This is not for me." There is wisdom in knowing that some people are not meant to understand your path because they are not walking it with you. Let's not confuse boundaries with barriers. A barrier is something we build out of fear. A boundary is something we build out of love, a love for our values, love for our well-being, and love for a life rooted in truth. And a life built on truth must have borders, not rigid walls that isolate, but respectful lines that define what we stand for and what we cannot allow. Every time you set a boundary, you affirm your identity. You draw the shape of your inner world. You decide who and what gets to influence your mind, your emotions, and your destiny. It's important to realize that not everyone who crosses your boundaries does so with malicious intent. Sometimes it's unawareness, sometimes it's cultural, sometimes it's habit. But even if someone is unaware, it's still your job to bring awareness. You cannot expect people to know your limits unless you express them. And once you do, if those limits continue to be ignored, then you know where you truly stand. A boundary not only defines who you are, it also reveals who others choose to be in response to your truth. Boundaries are a declaration of what you value. If you value your time, you won't let others waste it. If you value your peace, you won't let others disturb it. If you value your growth, you won't let others keep you stuck in cycles that drain your spirit. And make no mistake, setting boundaries is not a one-time act, it's a continuous practice. Life will always test your lines. People will always push. But your consistency in holding those boundaries is what builds trust in yourself. The moment you stop seeing boundaries as selfish and start seeing them as sacred is the moment your life begins to change. You stop overcommitting. You stop pretending to be okay. You stop pleasing people who wouldn't notice your silence. Instead, you begin to honor your own rhythm, your own needs, your own truth, and from that space of self-honesty, you can finally offer the world something real. Some of the strongest souls have the clearest boundaries, not because they are unkind, but because they've learned, often through pain, that their time and energy are not infinite. They've felt the emptiness of overgiving. They've tested the bitterness of being taken for granted. And in that place of weariness, they made a choice not to become hardened, but to become wise. They chose boundaries as a way to keep giving, but not to the point of breaking. You must realize this. There will always be people who want more from you than they are willing to give. That is not your fault, but it is your responsibility to notice, to step back, to protect your light. Boundaries are not rejection, they are redirection. They redirect your love, your loyalty, and your focus toward people and places that honor you fully. There's a quiet dignity in someone who can say, I care about you, but I must care for myself too. That balance, that inner strength, is the mark of someone who understands true harmony. You cannot pour from a cup that is always empty. You cannot grow in soil that is always trampled. Boundaries give you space to breathe, to recover, to return stronger and more grounded. And yes, it can be hard, especially at first, especially when people you love feel hurt by your limits. But in time, the right people will respect your boundaries. The wrong ones will reveal themselves. Either way, you win. Either way, you find peace. Stoic philosophy reminds us that our lives are ours alone to govern. What we give our attention to shapes who we become. Without boundaries, your mind becomes a playground for distraction, your emotions a battlefield for others' projections. But with boundaries, your life becomes your own. Your mind becomes a temple. Your heart, a sanctuary. Let others misunderstand you. Let them judge your silence, your distance, your discipline. What matters most is that you do not betray yourself trying to accommodate a world that doesn't understand your purpose. You were not born to be everything for everyone. You were born to be the keeper of your own flame, to protect it fiercely, and to shine where your light is truly needed. Boundaries, then, are not obstacles to connection, they are the very foundation of it. Only when you are whole can you truly connect with others. Only when you know where you end and someone else begins can you love fully without losing yourself. In every act of self-respect, in every no that honors your truth, you reclaim a part of your soul. You become more centered, more grounded, more alive. Boundaries are not selfish, they are sacred. They are the quiet voice inside that says, I am worthy of peace. I am worthy of respect. I am enough. And when you live from that place, no one, not even the cleverest manipulator, can take your power from you. Freedom starts with self-mastery. Freedom is a word that stirs the soul. It evokes visions of open skies, untethered lives, and the power to choose one's own path. But the Stoics taught something far deeper than this surface-level understanding. They knew that true freedom doesn't come from changing the world around you. It comes from mastering the world within you. It is not about escaping responsibility, but about taking full command of your mind, your emotions, and your choices. This is self-mastery, and without it, freedom is an illusion. What chains most people isn't an external prison, it's their internal chaos. Desires they cannot control. Anger that rises without warning. Fears that dictate their decisions. Insecurity that bends their backbone. Habits that rule their lives. We are not truly free if our every reaction is dictated by emotion, every decision by fear, every action by impulse. A person may have all the options in the world: money, status, mobility, but if they cannot govern themselves, they remain a slave to everything they cannot control. Self-mastery begins with awareness. You cannot command what you do not observe. Most people live unaware of the forces driving them. They are moved by cravings, by approval, by pride, by pain, but they do not pause to examine the routes of their actions. They run from silence, fill every empty space with noise, because they fear what they might hear in stillness. But it is in that silence, in that deep self-reflection, where the seeds of mastery are planted. To master oneself is not to suppress emotion, but to understand it. Anger is not your enemy. Fear is not your enemy. Desire is not your enemy. They are signals. They are teachers, but they must not become your masters. When you become a servant to your impulses, you give away your freedom piece by piece. You shout when you should be silent. You act when you should wait. You indulge when you should abstain. You apologize for the storm you allowed to break loose within you, knowing full well that it could have been calmed before it ever touched another. Self-mastery is choosing response over reaction. It is the moment when someone provokes you, and instead of being consumed by rage, you breathe and return to center. It is when temptation calls you loudly, but you quietly walk the other way. It is when the world tells you to hurry, panic, or fall out, but you move at your own deliberate pace, guided not by pressure but by principle. That is the strength of the Stoic, not coldness, but composure. Not apathy, but authority over the self. You cannot control the world, but you can always control your response to it. And that is where freedom lies. Life will test you through betrayal, through loss, through chaos. It will show you who you are by what you do when everything is shaking. Self-mastery is forged in these very fires. It's not learned in comfort. It's learned in moments when your lower nature wants to take over, or when your ego wants revenge, when your pride wants to speak, when your fear wants to flee. But you choose the higher road, not because it is easy, but because it is right. Every time you choose restraint over recklessness, discipline over desire, patience over panic, you grow in strength. Not the strength that others see on the outside, but the kind that builds an unshakable foundation inside. You begin to trust yourself. You begin to walk with a different kind of confidence, not loud or boastful, but grounded. It's the confidence of someone who knows their own mind, who is not easily swayed by public opinion or pulled by passing emotions. Freedom is not doing whatever you feel like in the moment. That is chaos. That is slavery disguised as liberty. Real freedom is being able to choose what is right even when everything in you screams for the opposite. It is living by your values, not your moods. It is holding yourself accountable when no one else will. It is rising before dawn when your body craves more sleep, because you have committed to something higher than comfort. It is forgiving someone who wronged you, not because they deserve it, but because you deserve peace. That is power. That is mastery. And yet, self-mastery is not a final destination. It is a practice, a path, a lifelong discipline. Just as a warrior sharpens their blade daily, the Stoic sharpens their mind. They reflect on their actions, examine their motives, and challenge their assumptions. They are not perfect, but they are present. They are not flawless, but they are honest. And in that honesty is a kind of liberation that no external force can take away. Think of all the ways people are enslaved today, not by governments, but by their own habits. Addictions to substances, to screens, to praise, patterns of avoidance, loops of negative thinking, toxic attachments. How can one claim to be free when a single word from the wrong person can ruin their whole day? When a minor inconvenience can spiral into a breakdown? When the approval of others becomes more important than the approval of one's own conscience? Self-mastery is the cure. It teaches you to stand firm in storms, to remain calm in criticism, to persist in purpose when motivation fades, to let go when holding on would cost your soul. It's not glamorous, it's not dramatic. Most of the time, it looks like quiet choices, subtle discipline, and inner work that no one applauds. But those who do this work carry a peace the world cannot give or take away. And that peace is the root of all real freedom. Even your freedom from manipulators begins with self-mastery. They prey on your emotional volatility, your unexamined wounds, your hunger for validation. But when you know yourself, when you have mastered your emotions, they have no entry point. You are no longer reactive. You become immovable. Their tactics fall flat, because there is nothing in you left for them to control. You don't need their praise. You don't fear their rejection. You don't buy into their illusions, because you have found the anchor within. This is why the ancients trained their minds as diligently as warriors trained their bodies. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, had every earthly power, yet he wrote daily reminders to himself: you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. He knew that even the throne could not protect a man from himself, that even an empire is fragile if the soul who rules it is not steady. The battlefield of life is not outside you, it is within. The greatest wars you'll ever fight are against your own lower nature. The temptations that call you to abandon your values, the distractions that pull you from your purpose, the lies you tell yourself to avoid growth. Conquer these, and you will be freer than kings. Lose to these, and you will be imprisoned, no matter how far you roam or how much you achieve. Self-mastery is radical ownership. It is refusing to blame others for your state of mind. It is saying, I am responsible for what I think, what I feel, What I do, it is letting go of excuses, letting go of the victimhood, letting go of comfort-driven decisions. It is replacing the question, what do I feel like doing, with what is the right thing to do. That shift alone transforms your entire existence, and as you grow in mastery, you begin to experience a different kind of freedom, and not just freedom from negative habits or toxic influences, but freedom to create, to love, to serve, to lead, to become. You become free to be present in the moment, not trapped in regret or fear. Free to speak your truth without fear of rejection. Free to walk away from situations that dishonor your worth. Free to start again after failure. Free to live without masks, without shame, without the weight of everyone's expectations. This is the paradox. Only the disciplined are truly free. Only the ones who say no to distractions, to ego, to impulsivity, these are the ones who can say yes to purpose, to peace, to power. And that kind of freedom, once found, cannot be bought or sold. It cannot be faked. It radiates from within. It makes a man unshakable, not because his world is perfect, but because his center is unbreakable. If you seek freedom, do not look outside. Look within. Train your mind. Guard your heart. Lead your emotions instead of following them. Choose principle over pleasure, truth over approval, action over avoidance. And remember always, the path to self-mastery is not easy, but neither is living a life of quiet slavery to the forces you refuse to face. Choose mastery. Choose freedom. Choose the strength that no one can see but that everyone can feel when you enter the room. Every manipulative scheme depends on one thing: your attention. Take it back. Direct it inward. The Stoic path is not about being cold. It's about being clear. Be the master of your thoughts. Guard your time, your emotions, your trust. You don't owe your loyalty to someone who demands it but doesn't earn it. Remember what Epictetus taught: no man is free who is not master of himself. Stand in your strength, speak your truth calmly, and if someone walks away because they could no longer control you, thank Ama for revealing who they truly were.